All right, folks, still ahead.
The star of the Netflix series Tiger King, spoiler alert, is in federal prison. He's been talking about getting out. So what exactly is the road to exoneration for Joe Exotic? And a doctor under arrest for allegedly strangling a teenager who wasn't social distancing. The whole thing caught on camera. What do you, the 13th juror, have to say about that? Go to CourtTV's Facebook pages and let us know what you think.
I'm Vinnie Politan, and we are live here on CourtTV. We are live every weeknight from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m., bringing you all the important stories in the world of crime and justice, taking a look at some of those trials that are coming up here on CourtTV, and of course, keeping you up to date on all those true crime mysteries taking place around the country. Okay. Coming up here in hour 3 of the show, the think tank is locked and loaded, so get ready, folks, for your front row seat to justice. In Rexburg, Idaho, so-called Doomsday cult mom Lori Vallow Daybell, locked up, getting ready for her preliminary hearing, speaking with her lawyer, has her conversation recorded by the jail. We have the latest. In Tampa, Florida, a community was terrorized by a mysterious serial killer until a shocking arrest. Now, prosecutors getting ready for the trial of the alleged Seminole Heights killer.
A prosecutor's pursuit of justice should be tempered by mercy. But some crimes are so unconscionable, so hard to fathom, that we must leave mercy to a higher power.
Plus, you, the 13th juror, speaks out with your reaction on social media.
Welcome back. Great to have you with us here in hour 3. Our docket is still full. And I want to begin. We're talking about the Doomsday cult mom, Lori Vallow Daybell. This is a woman who is locked up right now in Rexburg, Idaho. She's gone through 4 or 5 husbands through her lifetime. But right now she's locked up because she has 2 children who are missing. Police want to know where they are. A judge has ordered her to say where they are, and she has said nothing. As a result, she is now locked up, and she's preparing for a preliminary hearing. But while preparing, apparently in one of the conversations that she had with her attorney at the jail, the audio recording was rolling, and the privileged communication between attorney and client recorded. KTSU from Utah has the latest.
Well, the visitation rooms in Rexburg are very similar to the rooms here in Davis County. The difference is here in Davis County, they say they have not gotten any complaints. They take attorney-client privilege seriously. The fact of the matter is, no matter how you feel about Lori Vallow or the case involving her missing kids, she still has a right to a private conversation with her attorney. This is video of defense attorney Mark Means getting ready to visit his client, Lori Vallow, her first night in an Idaho jail cell. But now the Madison County Jail admits it may not have been that night, but one of the conversations that took place between the two of them was supposed to remain private, but didn't. It was recorded.
It's upsetting that it happens in such a high-profile case when there's so much at stake.
Lori's attorney now understands that the jail's quote-unquote mistake could benefit his client. At the very least, he wants her bond to be reduced.
It's certainly not grounds to have the case thrown out or anything like that, but it could give the attorney some basis to claim that holding her in jail just isn't working out.
Prosecutors say the conversation was recorded on accident because of new coronavirus policies and quickly deleted. The jail did not offer an explanation to Fox 13, only saying the case is now under investigation.
I think there's reason to be suspect about the conduct of the jail in this case.
The jail says the room where the recorded conversation took place looks very similar to this, the visitation rooms at the Davis County Jail in Utah, where these phones are not connected to a recording.
We are all about respecting the rights of the individuals who are in our care and custody. They're having an attorney client visit, then that conversation is not recorded.
If this case goes before a judge, it would be the 4th time Lori Vallow has asked for her bond to be reduced. It is set right now at $1 million.
So here's the concern tonight. One, obviously attorney-client privilege, but the other concern is this a get-out-of-jail card for Lori Vallow Daybell? Let's bring in our think tank tonight. We got a great one. Ashley McMahan, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor with us. Also joining us, Michael Sterling, criminal defense attorney, former federal prosecutor, and Joe Brewer joining us, another former federal prosecutor. All right, let me start. Ladies first. Sorry, guys. Ashley, is this now a get-out-of-jail ticket for Lori Vallow Daybell to argue, listen, I can't even have a private conversation with my attorney. How am I supposed to prepare for my case?
I think that's an argument that her attorney is going to make, but I don't think it's going to be an argument that they're going to win. The fact of the matter is here, we've got 2 missing children, and the jail has, I'm a little suspicious that they were listening in maybe to find out if she was going to tell her attorney where the kids are out of concern for the safety of the children. But we've also got two deceased, ex-spouses, a lot of dead bodies surrounding this. So I understand the interest in trying to hear what she's telling her attorney. And I also know the importance of attorney-client privilege to a criminal case, especially, one like this. But I don't think that just this little hiccup alone is going to get her out of jail.
Michael, what do you think? I mean, how bad of a violation is this? And how is a judge going to react to this?
It's very bad. Attorney-client privilege isn't just important, it's sacred. And the fact that this jail recorded a conversation between an attorney and their client, someone should be held accountable and someone should have to come to court. The judge should have a hearing. I don't know if we have enough information now, Vinnie, to make a determination about the impact of this on the case. But someone from the jail should have to come forward under oath and explain exactly what happened, how it happened. They shouldn't be able to give blanket assertions like, oh, well, this is related to some new COVID-19 policies that we had. No, somebody's got to come and explain exactly what those policies were, how those policies impacted what happened, because you don't violate attorney-client privilege at a jail. Attorneys have to be, I go into the jails all the time to talk to my clients. I have to know that when I go to have a conversation with them about their case, that it's not going to be recorded by the jail.
Joe Brewer, I look at this situation and the jail said, listen, it was quickly deleted. It is gone. No one will ever hear it. Number one, do you believe that? Number two, does it even matter whether or not it was deleted? And just the fact that it happens, is that bad enough perhaps to give her a strong argument to get out of jail?
So first of all, Vinnie, this is all very biblical. To your point, Chad Daybell is indeed Lori Vallow's 5th husband, just like the woman at the well that Jesus approached. Not to mention, she thinks she's God sent to prepare everybody for apocalypse, and she might in fact be right. The short answer is no, I don't think there's prejudice here. This is a perpetual minefield for defense attorneys every time they go in, every time they have a call. The real problem is this is endemic in a system that puts too onerous a bail situation on all of our defendants. The cases that are litigated, not just this one, are too complex. There's too much discovery, and they can't be litigated at arm's length at a distance when attorneys can't comfortably communicate by phone or, in this instance, through the glass. I was just with a federal defendant this week. We had the same problems. I'm wiping down the hand piece. I asked the guard repeatedly, or the intake officer asked him repeatedly if the conversation was being recorded. You just have no comfort. But the truth is, we have a detainee population that is too large, and California and New York and some other jurisdictions have taken some efforts to try to allow defendants. I mean, we're just technology is too sophisticated at this point. We can have so many of these folks out on bond and responsible to their bond conditions, so that attorneys can feel comfortable preparing the defense of their clients.
And this preliminary hearing is scheduled to come up soon. We'll see when they get back into court. Kay and Larry Woodcock are the grandparents of JJ, one of the two missing children. They spoke with Court TV about Lori Vallow and about the fact that she's in jail. Let's take a listen.
Every minute of every day we're missing JJ. We want this resolved. The fact that it could be so easily remedied at any minute, it's just infuriating, because it's such indignation the way Lori is treating this. As to anybody that cares for the kids, Colby, Annie, me, Larry, the whole family, our family, JJ's brothers, and all everybody, that they're just, it's a slap in the face every time Lori, doesn't, every minute of every day where Lori's not saying something, it's a slap in the face. But and I understand that that's what she wants. So yeah, she's getting it. It's working.
Yeah. What do you mean that's what she wants? What does she want, do you believe?
Who knows? She's nutty as a bat.
She wants attention.
Yeah.
However, this is probably the worst possible way you can get attention, but it's all about her narcissist personality or attitude, or whatever you want to call it. There's no purpose in this, and there's no purpose other than if she did something to the kids and she cannot produce them and she doesn't want to say, then there's a, but we don't go there. We're still thinking he's alive and Tyler's alive, and we're going to get him back.
All right, I understand there's a right to remain silent, but this silence speaks volumes, Michael. It tells me everything I need to know. The fact that she won't simply state where her children are.
Yeah, Vinny, this is very, very troubling to me. The fact that the judge ordered her to inform the court where the children are located. She refuses to cooperate. And then I believe that Chad, who's her new husband, sort of wanted to speak out a little bit more and wanted to come forward. And he said, when questioned by someone about where the kids were, he said, "Oh, well, it's more complicated than that," which means that he might have some relevant information about where those children are. This is just troubling. Yes, she obviously has a Fifth Amendment right, but this is troubling, Vinny. Someone's got to figure out and find out what's going on, and Chad may be a key part of that.
Any way to force her to speak, Ashley?
Not that I know of right now, but what I can say is, everything surrounding this case and everything we've heard about it so far, and I haven't personally spoken to Lori or had any interaction with her, but my heart absolutely breaks for these grandparents, because you can only imagine, everything around this points to some sort of mental disorder. There is something going on that isn't quite normal here, obviously. And to have her in custody and to feel like you are so close to know what happened and being able to get to that, my heart is absolutely broken for this family. And I'm not really sure what the remedy here is without violating her constitutional rights.
When we come back, we're going to talk about a serial killer. It's a trial that is coming up on Court TV, just a few months away at this time, down in Seminole Heights neighborhood of Tampa, Florida. We've got that story when we return. One of the trials that we're tracking for you here on Court TV, which is set to happen sometime this year, involves an alleged serial killer from the Tampa area of Florida. Seema Iyer has more.
In the heart of bustling Tampa is Seminole Heights. For nearly 2 months in 2017, it was home to fear and terror.
This is a city that had just lived through Irma. and has now spent the last 51 days dealing with a serial killer.
These are the faces of his victims: Benjamin Mitchell, Monica Hoffa, Anthony Naiboa, and Ronald Felton, all shot to death.
For 51 days, we had a neighborhood that was held hostage. We had neighbors that were living in fear. We had families that were devastated.
Mitchell was the first victim, shot near a bus stop. Hoffa's body was found in a parking lot. Naiboa was killed while walking home, and Felton died shot in the back. The victims had no apparent connection, except they were all killed within a half mile of one another while they were walking alone. The slayings, unprovoked and random, had investigators and the community desperate to catch the killer. A $110,000 reward was posted. The break in the case came from a tip at this McDonald's restaurant. An employee here gave the manager a bag for safekeeping. Inside the bag, a loaded 9mm handgun.
That firearm was used in all 4 murders.
The gun led police to 24-year-old Howell Trey Donaldson III. Tampa investigators interrogated Donaldson for hours. Donaldson admitted he owned the gun, but denied he committed the murders.
Do you owe these families an explanation?
We're gonna know. The gun's gonna come back. We're gonna know.
Are you responsible for this?
No.
Because it's the gun, okay? You murdered those people. Your phone puts you right there at specific times. We know it's you. Can you please tell us why?
The question goes unanswered, and the conversation ends when Donaldson invokes his right to counsel.
I just don't know anything else to say. I just want to, I guess, talk to my attorney.
Donaldson's parents shaken by his arrest.
We're people of faith, and we're going to lean on our faith as we go through this ordeal, and we're going to allow God to be God.
Anybody that knows Trey knows that's not Trey. He doesn't have the personality of that character. That's not my son, that's my baby.
Their son was a graduate of St. John's University. He was a member of the school's basketball team in 2011. The Donaldsons are standing by their child. They have visited him frequently, providing encouragement and support while he is behind bars awaiting trial. In these jailhouse conversations, the younger Donaldson appears focused only on himself.
You're trying to keep your strength up, you're exercising a little bit.
I'm so broken, I can't. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah.
I can't, man.
Yeah, try to.
Look, if I do it, my arm will break off. This is what I'm telling you.
Donaldson hasn't admitted to any of the shootings, seemingly more concerned about his own well-being during a court appearance.
Some unfortunate things to happen to me, and since I've been in there, I've become ill, physically ill. I'm an ex-college athlete, and it's hard for me to stand right now. I'm 26 years old. I shouldn't be feeling like I'm 96 years old. I feel like, you know, if I'm in there much longer, that my heart and my body won't be able to last under what I've been enduring.
Harold Schechter, an expert on serial killers, has authored several books on the subject. Schechter says Donaldson's alleged crimes are not typical of serial killers.
So I would tend to think of him more as a rampage killer, or possibly a spree killer, in addition to their inability to empathize with other human beings. You know, these kinds of personalities often are incapable of feeling any genuine remorse.
Donaldson is set to go on trial in a few months, set to face the families of the victims who lost their loved ones, and set to face the death penalty.
Do I want him to get the death penalty? That's hard for me. I'm a mother myself. It's hard. It's hard. But whatever comes its way, let it happen.
It's just having faith and first in God and then the system that the right thing's going to be done and that there's going to be justice for what was done to our loved one, Monica.
Puzzling case. The answer to the question why just has not been answered. I wonder if prosecutors will have a theory at trial. Joe Brewer, I think about this case. I'm looking at the evidence. Looks like the gun is the smoking gun here.
So it is. And then I think they also have some cellular tower records that place him nearby some of the incidents. And I think those two pieces together give them an opportunity to make some case against him.
Yeah, this is a death penalty case, Ashley, and is that what it's ultimately all about, do you think? Do you think this is about for the defense, or do you think they have a chance to try to take the gun out of his hands and put it in someone else's hands?
I certainly think that's what they're going to try to do, and it's what I would do if I was, his attorney in this case. But these death penalty cases where the act is so random, and there seems to be no motivation, are really difficult. And they're even difficult for the families of the victims, as we heard, one of the mothers of one of the victims speaking. That's a difficult decision for the family of a victim to even make, to decide, okay, are we doing an eye for an eye here, or is it going to be a case like, with Amber Geiger, she killed someone, and then the family came out during sentencing and said, hey, look, this is what we're recommending for sentencing because it doesn't do any good to lose two people, So it's going to be a determination on where we think this defendant's mental health is, and what his motivation was if he's found guilty. So I don't know yet.
Michael, listening to him in court and listening to him speak with his parents, I mean, two words stuck out to me: I'm broken.
Yeah, Vinny, it's one of those things where if he is guilty, if he is in fact guilty, then this is the behavior of someone who does lack the ability to empathize, and it shows an extreme amount of narcissism. But on the other hand, if he's not guilty, as his attorney and he are proclaiming, then, he probably is, this is probably the result of feeling like he's being persecuted for a crime he did not commit, and that he's feeling, he's starting to give way to, what happens when you sit in jail for a long period of time. Your spirit, starts to break, especially if you're sitting in jail for a crime you did not commit.
When we come back, the real reason why everyone is here tonight, we're going to talk about Tiger King. We're going to talk about Joe Exotic's road to exoneration. Does it exist? He's in federal prison. We've got the federal prosecutors here tonight. We're going to talk about it when we come back.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm crime and justice reporter Julia Janae with your Court TV news break, where we are following the biggest legal stories from across the nation and the impact that COVID-19 and the pandemic are having on our judicial system. In New Hampshire, the circuit court system there is speeding up their processes in hopes of helping families whose loved ones have become hospitalized. This change will make it easier to get an emergency guardianship appointment over a loved one who is incapacitated and can't make their own medical decisions. This type of filing normally takes 15 days. But that's too long, in the court's opinion, when considering the virus and the impact it has on someone's health. Now hearings can be done by phone or video over a 48-hour period. And finally tonight, it's the worst kind of Easter story. Police in Flagler County, Florida were looking for a suspect earlier this week who was accused of dropping off Easter eggs in mailboxes around town. Inside most of these eggs was one sheet of toilet paper, some food items, and get this, a piece of paper with porn on it. The Flagler County Sheriff's Office says after numerous calls from the public and then asking the public for help, they believe they have the culprit. This woman, 42-year-old Abril Sistoni. Authorities say she's admitted to doing mailbox drops and had a bag of pornographic material in the car when she was caught. She's being charged with 11 counts of distributing obscene material. And Vinnie, get this, she told police that she actually has dropped about 400 items in mailboxes over the past few weeks.
Why is it always Florida? It's always Florida, Julia. Let me ask you, I've heard of eggcorns, but I never heard of egg porn before. Did she give a reason why?
She did tell police when she was spilling her story about it and not denying, according to police. She said that she was trying to educate people, and some of these Easter eggs also had references to churches and local government buildings inside the eggs.
Okay. Once again, only in Florida. Julia Janae, thank you so much. All right, speaking of wild and crazy, how about Tiger King? I know millions of people binging on it and watching it. Spoiler alert, Joe Exotic, the main character, is in federal prison. On Twitter the other day, Netflix put out a message from him where he's actually talking about what he's focusing on now.
I'm done with the Joe Baskin saga. It's now time to turn the tables and Joe get out of jail, a free man, and exonerated from all these charges.
So Joe Exotic focusing on his road to exoneration, and one step may have been taken on his behalf. Apparently, during President Trump's news conference yesterday, he was asked about Joe Exotic. Take a listen.
So one of the biggest rating hits of the coronavirus, aside from these briefings, has been a show on Netflix called Tiger King. Yeah. And the man who's the star of this is a former zoo owner who's serving a 22-year prison sentence. He's asking you for a pardon, saying he was unfairly convicted. Your son yesterday jokingly said that he was going to advocate for it, and I was wondering if you've seen the show and if you have any thoughts on pardoning Joe Exotic.
Which son? It must be Don.
It was.
I had a feeling it was Don. Is that what he said? I don't know. I know nothing about it. He has 22 years for what? What did he do?
He allegedly hired someone to murder an animal rights activist, but he said that he didn't do that, and he was.
You think he didn't do it? Are you on his side?
Well,
are you recommending a pardon?
No, I'm not advocating anything.
As a reporter, you're not allowed to do that. You'd be criticized by these. Would you recommend a pardon?
I'm not weighing in on time.
I don't think you would. I don't think you would. Go ahead. You have a question?
I do like Joe Exotic.
I'll take a look. Is that Joe Exotic? That's Joe Exotic.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Let's bring back in our think tank. Joe Brewer, you're a former federal prosecutor. We've got 22 years for murder for hire, some wildlife violations. What do you see as the road to exoneration for Joe Exotic?
He's got one road, and that's cooperation. We have a petition pending with the White House right now on behalf of a client. They're extraordinary remedies. They're rarely given, even though they receive a lot of exposure. Something like this would be very high profile. President Trump has had a lot of high profile clemency petitions that he's granted here even in 2020. They're still very, very rare. But you'll actually see at the end of the Netflix documentary, Joe Maldonado is already cooperating with PETA, who's not a law enforcement agency, but that cooperation may lead to some cooperation with the relevant federal agencies. They'll come back on a Rule 35, and that'll give him a chance to probably chop down that sentence. So that's his best path is to work to try to identify other people that are committing crimes in this same area. In the federal system, you only serve about 85% of your sentence. That 22 years is a good bit less, plus the time he's already served, than what it is on paper. And with a little cooperation and a Rule 35, he might be out sooner than he thinks.
Michael Sterling, what do you see as the road to exoneration for Joe Exotic?
Well, one thing was clear to me, Vinny, watching the Tiger King myself, was that the criminal, the person who I thought did something that was the most culpable wasn't Joe Exotic, but was Carol Baskin. And I think if investigators reopen the case into the disappearance of her husband over 20 years ago, and there becomes some evidence related to the fact that she had any involvement, I think that may, benefit Joe Exotic, and it may call into question some of the testimony that she provided at trial. But I thought watching it that I didn't believe for a second that, based on the information that I saw, and then, as a legal analyst here on Court TV, I had to go do some additional research and started reading as many articles as I could. But I didn't think that the evidence supported a conviction on the murder for hire plot. I thought that was an extremely weak charge, and it was clear to me that the individuals who were involved in it, in many ways, almost conspired to have Joe convicted so that they could be, so that they wouldn't be charged with the crime. But I found the information related to Ms. Baskin to be the most troubling. And I hope that investigators really take seriously the disappearance of her husband.
So what I did is we spoke with one of the jurors from the Joe Exotic trial, and I asked her specifically about those charges, the murder for hire charges, and here's what she had to say.
He had a record. There was a recording of him and the undercover agent at the zoo, and it was a long recording. It was about 45 minutes. The first 20 minutes was pretty much dead air because they were just walking, but then it was Joe actually talking to him, the undercover agent, saying that the first guy he hired to kill her ran away with his money, so he wanted to try again. And that's the kind of thing that wasn't shown on the documentary, which made people think that he was set up. But we heard the recordings of him actually talking to the hitman and talking about money.
Ashley, imagine that, the docuseries leaving evidence out.
I can't believe it. How often does that happen? Yeah, I agree with you. I want Carol Baskin investigated, but as somebody who is sheltering in place with my mother and who sat and watched with my family the whole Tiger King documentary, I was just overwhelmed. Every single episode was better than the last, and it was a crazy ride. I, for one, am very glad that our president seems to be the only person who hasn't seen it so far. So that's good. That's good news. But I think there's a lot of things that we don't know about, and we need to see an unedited version of this documentary before we make any decisions.
Vinnie.
Joe, my experience was, go ahead.
Vinnie, the one thing that I got from that documentary watching Joe Exotic was that, one, he was full of bluff and bluster and just said things all of the time that were simply, you know what I mean? He was just a guy who liked to bluster and bluff all the time. And I think if the juror watched that documentary, they may have had a second thought about whether or not what he was telling that agent was just bluster and puffery, as opposed to something that he really did. I just don't believe for a second that this guy really truly hired someone to try to murder Carol Baskin.
Joe,
I don't know.
When I think of federal prosecutors, I think of, we don't try a case unless we've got, audio recordings and cooperating witnesses. That's just standard operating procedure. Is there any way to ever overcome that stuff?
Well, so first of all, I don't think the documentary played coy with the facts. I mean, they literally there must have been 20 separate incidences at the minimum of Joe Exotic self-recording, threatening Carol Baskin, including shooting her in effigy on Joe Exotic television. So there was a lot of good corroborative evidence in addition to what I think Alan Glover testified. And Alan Glover and Jeff Lowe are two compromised individuals, but that's what you get in conspiracy cases. Your conspirators don't have clean hands. And so it's not a surprise to me. I mean, the documentary is not going to have access or going to have the time to show us every bit of the evidence, but it's no surprise to me that there were audio recordings, as I think was reflected in the documentary, that were consistent with what Alan Glover actually said, is that he gave me this amount of money. He was supposed to give me, I think it was 10 grand. Maybe gave him 3,000, and then he came back to my home state of South Carolina and never made it all the way to Florida. But to your point, Vinnie, in fact, they did not go to the grand jury until they had the corroborative statement of Alan Glover, and I think I'm recalling that correctly. So to your point, the U.S. Attorney's Office is not going to take this to the mat in something as pretty extraordinary as a murder for hire case, which is a hard jurisdictional case to prove in federal court, without their ducks in a row on this. And I think they felt comfortable. And they had everybody lined up against Joe Exotic. I mean, Joe Exotic had he had all these people working for him, but really he had developed a lot of bad will with people. And so they had a train of people ready to kind of turn, even if they didn't have direct, information about the murder for hire, to turn on Joe Exotic. And I think they felt like they had a truckload to paint Mr. Maldonado the way they needed to.
And the juror I spoke to did talk to me about the alleged hitman. Let's take a listen.
Well, it was actually everything with Alan Glover. All of the evidence was either in a text, or I think it was all text, actually. I don't think there was any recordings for him. But everything was in there that all the evidence we needed was there to convict Joe on that one. And as far as the undercover, it was the audio tape. So we never had to really piece anything together. It was all kind of handed to us on a silver platter.
Michael Sterling, I want you to take the appeal. I want you to, can you do it without charging him? Because I don't think he has any money.
Well, no, I can't do it without charging him, Vinnie. Of course not. But listen, I just simply do not believe this guy's guilty. I mean, watching, and I've watched your show, Vinnie. You and the other analysts talked about this, but people came away from that documentary, and I think you mentioned this, that they had a little more empathy for Joe Exotic than they had for Carol Baskin. And I think one of the reasons was that Joe Exotic was so transparent. I mean, he's a guy who's full of bluff and bluster. He wants to be thought of as bigger than he is, as more important than he is. He's flamboyant. He's very, very transparent. And the one thing you don't do when you're going to hire somebody to murder somebody is go around telling everybody that you want the person dead. I think I think that the fact that he's like having all of these conversations, he doesn't strike me as somebody who was, who was actually going to ever do it. It just seemed like it was all talk. It was all talk. It was all talk. It's hard for me to believe after watching the documentary.
Michael, your passion is coming through. What we have to do, we're going to have you come back and just do like a 10-minute closing argument to America, and then we'll open up the polls and we'll see what the verdict is. I think it's the only way we can make this a case, somehow bring some conclusion to that series. Stay where you are, folks. When we come back, a doctor in Kentucky was concerned because there were a group of teenage girls who were congregating together. They weren't practicing social distancing, so apparently he choked one of the girls. That's the accusation. It's on camera. We'll let you make the decision. 13th juror next.
19 patients. Yes? Okay. Okay. Yeah, we're leaving. Please, let's not cuss at each other.
What you want?
No, I'm not calling you anything, sir. Just don't to us with
this right here.
Hey, don't touch. Hey, do not. Hey, oh my God! What the your problem? You do not. Do not. I will get your phone. I will get your phone. You give me my hey! Get away from her! Oh my God! Get off of her! Seriously, get off of her! No!
All right, so what's going on there? That's a doctor in Kentucky who apparently was out for a walk with his wife and saw a group of teenage girls in this lakefront amphitheater, who about 9 of them or so, that weren't necessarily social distancing, and he tried to get them to stop, and things escalated. Now he's been charged with first-degree strangulation, among other charges, based upon that video. So, time now, ladies and gentlemen, take a look at your reaction on social media, the 13th juror, and let's get right to that first comment, if we could. Let's put it on up. Comes from Pauletta. It is our comment of the day, coming from Pauletta. And it reads, in my opinion, if social distancing is the issue, he's just as wrong as the rest of them. Choking a child is criminal within itself, but isn't he defeating the purpose? You have to be pretty close to choke someone. The doctor definitely overstepped and should be charged with assault. Just my opinion. Ashley McMahan, I was shocked, but people are on edge, and he crossed the line, it looks like.
Hey, Vinny, I agree with Pauletta 100%. This guy's totally defeating the purpose of his own vigilantism. So when have we ever seen somebody taking the law into their own hands work out well for that person? I know we haven't seen it happen on Court TV. So, I agree with Pauletta on this one.
Stephen writes, this video doesn't show what led up to this man behaving this way. He seemed to be extremely agitated. Regardless, he should have contacted the proper authorities if they were violating social distancing rules. He's been charged with first-degree strangulation, Joe Brewer. Is there anything that could have happened before this video started rolling that could be a defense to this?
I know exactly the math. It's stress plus cabin fever, plus I hate millennials rage. I mean, this guy has a lot of pent-up frustration that way predates this this moment and whatever was happening in real time. And the guy's just under a lot of stress, and he acted out in a really terrible way.
Becky writing tonight, so much for the, quote, do no harm oath. I pray he's not actively practicing medicine. Apparently, I think he's been suspended or put on leave from where he worked. I hope they file charges on him, and yes, they have. Michael Sterling, I think we're going to start to see more and more stories, unfortunately, like this because of the tension a lot of people are feeling.
Yeah, I agree with that, Vinny. I think that a lot of things have been canceled. Our sports have been canceled. A lot of people's jobs have been canceled. A lot of people have lost their jobs. A lot of doctors weren't able to go to work. But kindness hasn't been canceled. And we've got to figure out, and people should make sure they protect their mental health during these stressful times, but we've got to figure out how to continue to work together because we're all in this together.
Jennifer tonight, I don't blame him in a way. A lot of teenagers are entitled brats. Whew. Joe Brewer, could there be some jury nullification if we get some people who have teenagers at home?
Look, that's the algorithm I've already referenced. I mean, he already had pent-up frustration at this whole demography, and then you add on it the stress of the moment. I was actually on a telemed call today with my physician, and he just looked defeated. I mean, he's in a tough industry, and he just is already frustrated with these. They were somewhere between 18 and 22 years old. So I absolutely think that there's a group of people in his age demographic that's going to give him a pass and jury nullify his behavior.
Kim writing tonight, did I just see a grown man lose his mind on a bunch of kids? He obviously needs more social distancing, perhaps a lockdown in his home by himself to think what the heck his priorities should have been. The kids displayed more manners and respect than he deserved. Ashley, this whole social distancing thing is really, we're seeing it manifest itself in different ways in conflicts among people, whether it's police and the public. The other day, it was a dad playing t-ball with his daughter, and police, approached him. Where is the line? Where should it be right now? Who should be enforcing this? Should we be enforcing this in a way where we lock people up or take people down or get into these angry confrontations?
Look, to agree with what Michael said earlier, we're all in this together, and a lot of our favorite things have been canceled, and people are really feeling the stress. People are either working really long hours in the healthcare industry, or they're not working at all, and are uncertain about their future. But kindness hasn't been canceled. And I agree with Michael. You've got to take care of yourself. We're unfortunately seeing a rise in domestic violence. And I think we're going to continue to see that if we don't all take care of our own state of mind during this time and recognize that this is something that we're all in together. And there is no rule book for this. We're going to have to learn as we go.
Absolutely. One more comment from Danielle. Oh my gosh, this is horrible. He was pushing girls and then on the ground with one, too. He should be in jail for a long time and also needs a mental health evaluation. There's something seriously wrong with him for him to do this. And we'll leave it on that note. What a great job. What a great think tank tonight. Michael Sterling, Ashley McMahan, Joe Brewer, great to have you on the program. Please come back and please stay safe. Thanks again.
Thanks so much, Vinny.
Thank you, Vinny.
Thanks.
All right, folks, our coverage continues here on Court TV. We'll be back here every night from 8 to 11, bringing you the world of crime and justice with our live program. And as always, folks, from a distance, don't forget to hug the kids.
This is Court TV.
The network designed for true crime.
Not justice! No peace!